This little device right here might be game changing for all Sony and Nikon shooters. So let's talk about it. So there's an old saying in the camera community that you date your camera bodies and you marry your lenses, because you can take lenses with you across camera bodies. So as cameras get better and as they get upgraded and new versions come out, you can take your old lenses with you because they don't tend to have all that drastic upgrades each time that they release a new one. So you want to keep your lenses with you. However, if you're wanting to switch from one camera brand to another, it's super expensive, right? Because you got to sell all of your old lenses. You're losing a decent amount of money on the used market doing that. And then you got to go out and you've got to buy loads of new lenses for your other camera. You can lose hundreds upon hundreds of dollars doing this depending on how much you've invested into your system, and that is where adapters come in. Now, you can't adapt all lenses to all cameras. It doesn't really work like that. Every camera brand, when they design a camera mount, create something called the flange distance. Okay, it's kind of a funny word. Now, the flange distance is basically the distance between the sensor and the mount. So as you can see on this Nikon, there's really not much space between the sensor and the mount itself. And that is where Nikon is kind of winning in this whole battle, because all other camera companies, their flange distance is farther away, which means that you can't take Nikon lenses and adapt them onto any other camera. But in theory, you can take any lens from any other mirrorless camera currently and adapt them onto Nikon, including Sony. And that's where this comes in. This is the Megadap adapter. And this takes Sony lenses and it puts your Sony glass onto a Nikon camera. And it's super, super simple. You can just take this little adapter and put it on your camera, kind of like you see me doing here. Or you can just take your lens and put the adapter on the lens, like this. And now this lens has a Nikon mount on the back. And as you can see, there are electronic contacts on this, which means that I can take all of my metadata from the lens, including autofocus, and stick it on my Nikon camera, giving me full control of the lens and full autofocus of all of my Sony lenses on all Nikon cameras. That's crazy. The amazing thing about this is it's flawless. It works perfectly. Every lens that I've tested on this, every photo that you've seen that I'm going to be putting on the screen, and every video clip, I have shot with Sony lenses on my Nikon camera. I've tried out 4 different lenses. I've tried the Sony 20mm f1.8G lens, which is this one right here. I think this is my favorite combo. I actually tried the anamorphic by Sirui. It's also a 20mm f1.8. I've used an old lens, so I used it's like 10 to 15 years old. It's a Zeiss 55mm f1.8 lens, just to see if it still works with sort of older lenses. And I also used this. This is a Samyang 135mm f1.8. This is the only one that I kind of had a little bit of trouble with when it came to autofocus, but then I stuck it on my Sony camera and I had the same trouble. So I don't think that's a problem with the adapter. I think it's a problem with the lens. That's a lot of glass. Okay, that's a lot of glass for any camera to be moving. It's heavy, it's third party, and it's not all that good on Sony. So it wasn't gonna be all that good on Nikon either. But it still worked and you still got some pretty cool photos. So why am I so excited about this? Well, basically I have loads of Sony lenses and I don't want to have to sell all of them. I'm a little bit disenchanted with Sony at the moment, just a little bit with kind of the cameras that they're putting out. But I don't want to have to sell everything because I'm already pretty invested in the system. But I'm really excited about what some of the things that Nikon are doing. I love the Nikon ZF. It's one of my absolute favorite cameras of this year. And I'm hoping to get my hands on the Z5 Mark II, which I think is a phenomenal budget camera for beginners within the full frame market. But I don't want to have to throw thousands upon thousands of dollars to get Z mount glass. So what I can then do is I can invest in Nikon cameras without having to worry about having to buy all the lenses immediately, because I can currently get by with what I have on Sony and start to invest in Nikon as I go along. So I've shown you a lot of photos, obviously, and the photos do work really well, right? Photography mode, I literally had no problems. It literally works like a native lens. Now, when I say it works like a native lens, what I'm not saying is it works like a Sony lens on a Sony camera. What I am saying is it works like a Nikon lens on a Nikon camera, which means that the autofocus is excellent. It is not quite like Sony. It's pretty close. It is still very, very good and probably better than most of us need. But I just want to make you aware, if you're used to Sony stuff and you put this on here, you're not getting Sony performance, you're getting Nikon performance, which is still excellent for adapted lenses. Now, it's one thing to be able to autofocus for photography, but how does it do for video? Well, I haven't given it a massive amount of testing, but I've used this lens a lot. So a lot of the videos that I've put out recently over the last few months have been filmed on this combo, the Nikon ZF with the 20mm f1.8. All of these clips that you're watching right now are filmed on Nikon using a Sony lens, and I didn't have any problems. There was no problems with hunting. There was no problems with any autofocusing stuff. Nothing. It just worked. And again, like, granted, this is using one of Sony's newer G lenses, which are, you know, obviously going to perform better and communicate with your camera better than sort of third-party cheaper lenses. But still, I think it is incredible that you're able to do this. Now, there are two things that I would say might be downsides on this little adapter. So I want to talk about those real quick. The first one is definitely a downside, and the second one is probably more, based off of your personal opinion as to whether it is a downside or not. First off, and the thing that I think is genuinely missing on this little adapter, is there is no weather sealing. So there's no weather sealing on either side of this adapter. So if you're wanting to take this into extreme climates of rain, thunderstorms, like, sand, dust, all that kind of stuff, I'd be very, very careful, because this is not weather sealed. So you're more likely to get dust and dirt into your sensor if you're taking it into extreme conditions. Now, 99.9% of the time, it's going to be fine, but in the extreme circumstances, it is not weather sealed. Now, Newer do make one that is weather sealed. However, the videos that I've seen about it, it doesn't seem to perform quite as well as the Megadap when it comes to autofocus. That's why I went with this one. The other thing about the Newer one, though, is it is like $100 cheaper. So this adapter is $250. Now, $250 for a tiny little adapter might seem crazy to you, but safe to say, if I was to sell all of my lenses that I have on the shelf over here, if I was to sell all of them and then buy all Nikon equivalent lenses to switch, I would be spending far more than $250. I'd be losing upwards of $250 on the sale of one lens, never mind the whole set. So if you are pretty well invested in the Sony lens ecosystem and you're looking at moving to Nikon, then this is a no-brainer, in my opinion, especially if you want to get something fun like the ZF. However, if you have one lens and one cheap camera and you're wanting to switch, then maybe this is not worth it for you. If all you have is a ZV-E10 and a kit lens, I don't think this is necessarily for you. You may as well just start getting some Nikon lenses, but that's obviously entirely down to you and what you have, the gear that you have, and how much you're willing to spend on something like this if you're wanting to make that switch. So that's what I got you for free today. I thought it was interesting. I wanted to just showcase it and show that it works really well. This thing is awesome. Not affiliated. I bought this with my own money. Never talked to Megadap at all, but I just thought I would let you know that I think it is a fantastic purchase, and I'm really glad that I got it this year. The other really exciting thing about this is this does open the door for other lenses. Maybe you're invested in the L-mount system. You could adapt L-mount to Z-mount. I don't know if that exists yet with full autofocus and all that kind of stuff, but it's definitely possible. And the same thing is true of RF. If Canon ever decide to open the RF system for people to be able to do some third-party lenses or adapters with. So it's just exciting times. Nikon is making some cool cameras, and for me, I was never interested because I never had any lenses. Now I've got 20 lenses, so it works great. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, hit the like button, drop a comment, or maybe even subscribe as we continue to build this channel. I appreciate all of you for doing so, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.